Hi, hey, and all those other greetings, great adventures. I'm Jake Spins, welcoming you guys back to my gaming and unboxing channel, where tonight I want to talk about the King of Swing, the Hoarder of Potassium, the King of Kong of the Mario series. Give it up for Donkey Kong! First appearing in the self-titled 1981 arcade game, Donkey Kong needs no introduction to pretty much anybody that's played a video game and anybody that loves Nintendo or watches this channel at all. But guess what? I'm still gonna give it anyway because it's me and I like spreading information because that's how I be. So, in his first appearance, Donkey Kong was actually an antagonist and Mario's very first enemy slash rival. In fact, Mario wasn't even Mario at this point, and instead, he was Jumpman, saving a female in red named Pauline. It's pretty easy to see the connections between King Kong and Donkey Kong, as King Kong just steals a woman, goes up the Eiffel Tower, and instead, Donkey Kong ends up stealing a woman and then deciding to go into construction with her because But, even weirder, he ends up using barrels to try to get rid of Mario, and there's oil drums that have sentient fire going out of them. I mean, let's be honest here, all sanity went out the window when Donkey Kong ended up picking up Pauline and then heading to the construction site. Like many games of the era, Donkey Kong is a very short game and one that you can get through the stages very easily. In fact, it only has 3 to 4 stages depending on the version that you end up playing, and one of those stages being a very terrible one, ending up in Smash Bros. Debuting in Smash Bros. Brawl. Though why they didn't end up just doing the very first stage from Donkey Kong and they did 75M with all the springs and stuff is beyond me, because the first stage of Donkey Kong is very iconic and the thing that I think of the most when I think of Donkey Kong. Even more interestingly though, this Donkey Kong and that Donkey Kong are considered 2 separate Donkey Kongs because the original Donkey Kong is actually seen to be Cranky Kong, which is the grandfather of this Donkey Kong, who first appeared in Donkey Kong Country inside of 1994. It's kind of an interesting thing because Cranky Kong slash the original Donkey Kong ends up being the antagonist, whereas this DK ends up being protagonist. Though the weird thing is, we do have later games in the Donkey Kong vs. Mario series, which supposedly is the main Donkey Kong who all of a sudden gets super obsessed with Pauline and figures of Pauline, and it just gets really, really strange. That being said though, I do feel like we should acknowledge the elephant in the room. A lot of people do see this as the Mario series, as Nintendo, and pretty much everywhere around the world knows this as the series. However, Donkey Kong is his own series for multiple reasons. I do always find it interesting that because Mario got famous from Super Mario Bros. Instead of his Jumpman days, but because Super Mario Bros. Was the one that got super big, having 8 worlds and creating the genre of platformers, DK ended up just being a forgotten Mario character up until we ended up getting Donkey Kong Country, which completely rebranded the entire character. We end up finding out that DK lives in the jungle with his best pal Diddy Kong, and they go on this huge adventure trying to get back their banana horde from King K. Rool and the Kremlings. This goes on for many different games where we end up getting Dixie Kong and Diddy Kong trying to save Donkey Kong, trying to get Donkey Kong back. We also do have DK3, but from what I understand, a lot of people are kind of on this, considering the fact that one of the playable characters is a literal baby, but not like baby DK, it's like a gigantic gorilla baby named Kiddy Kong. Also, the character plays very similarly to Donkey Kong, which is fairly strange. We do also have the Return series, where we can play as characters like Cranky Kong, Dixie, Diddy, and eventually Funky Kong with Funky Mo. Anyway, though, enough of my random babbling and jumping all over the place. It's time to open this guy up. So, as I've said in many different unboxings, I don't always get Plush because they're my favorite. Sometimes I get them for a collection's sake, such as the fact that I ended up getting Diddy Kong, and I believe doing a Diddy Kong video as well. I just ended up getting Diddy Kong on a whim after I played Mario Kart Wii and finished it, because he got me through that final stretch, so I appreciated him more. But it also felt wrong to have a Mario collection and not have Donkey Kong. That being said, though, there was a plush one of my classmates had, and it had kind of a carpety look to it for Donkey Kong. I believe it was the DK Mario Party 5 plush, which I did have the Mario and Luigi ones of, I believe. That being said, though, they weren't the prettiest plush, especially Wario and especially DK. I do have a Yoshi one that I think is from 5, and that one's pretty good. Though, other than that, I haven't really seen much of any DK plush, and to be honest, this is probably the best looking DK plush that I've seen ever. You do also have your standard thumbs up render, which had basically become the standard render for a long time in the Mario series, up until recently when they started doing more renders of these characters. So looking at the plush himself, we should start off with the face, the moneymaker, the thing that is used to chomp the banana. So first things first, let's look at the eyes. I'm kind of curious what the fabric is of in between the eyes for the eyeliner, eyeshadow, whatever you want to call it, which I really thought that was going to be a rougher texture, maybe something embroidered, or just a rougher felt. Surprisingly though, it seems to be the same felt as what's used for the main body, which is a fairly soft but slightly rough felt. Going from there though, we might as well look at the eyes, and the whites of the eyes are also a softer fabric, having a little bit of an embroidered edge to them, with the center of the black and the white being an embroidered piece. Below there we also have the nostrils, which those are embroidered, and we have the muzzle, which is a nice tan and soft fabric. Honestly, I figured that this probably could have been a darker color, though looking at Donkey Kong, he's surprisingly pale. I don't know why, but his face and his skin tone I would have figured would have been slightly darker than it is, but no, it is quite pale. Since we're already on the muzzle, I do want to talk about the lips, as this is something that they also have with Diddy Kong. I don't really like how they did this. It's not that it's bad, it's just kind of strange. Both Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong don't really have lips. It's more so that they have a little bit of a curve that goes on, which they really didn't need to add for the plush, and to be honest, it just makes it look a bit awkward and kind of weird, because it, instead of curving more so like a tiny little bit, it just pops out and gives them lips when they really shouldn't have that. It also is just a very thin piece of fabric on the top and bottom lip that's kind of just pressed together and sewn, which is also why it looks weird, because it doesn't really have much of a flow to it. It's just abruptly there and abruptly ends, which I gotta say, not a big fan of. Especially for Donkey Kong, I think even if it would have been a little cheesy, they definitely should have done the toothy smile for him, because he does definitely have that toothy smile constantly, which has kind of become legendary for Donkey Kong in a sort of way. From there, we also have the ears, and this is more of a cusped felt, where it's two pieces with absolutely no stuffing in it, and it does have quite a lot of detail in it because it is pinched together, giving that inside the ear section. And then if you look at the back, you do actually see that there's a rim, and then under it is the pinched part to be able to make that pattern. On top of his head, you also have what you would assume is hair, but the Donkey Kong show actually confirms that that's his skull shape. I'm just as confused as anybody else, and I don't like it either. Honestly, you'd think that this part would be hair and it would be a tough. Apparently not. Unless that's not canon or it's some sort of weird universe thing where for some reason that universe has that problem, but then the rest of Donkey Kong doesn't. Because also, if you look at the render, that's fur. There is no way there's a skull there. It's way too curved. And there's no way the hill that looks like it's from the Grinch has a skull in it. I'm telling you that right now. It is positioned pretty nicely. They probably could have curved it a bit more, though I shouldn't be too harsh considering this is a plush, and all things considered, it actually looks pretty good. From there, we have the only clothing that Donkey Kong has, because Nintendo said, we can't have a character with no clothes, and Donkey Kong said, let me put on my tie. And Nintendo was like, okay, that works. The tie itself, though, is a nice soft fabric going all the way back into the neck. And let's see. I always love playing this game. It is a separate piece and not sewn all the way in, but this crease right there, it's sewn in there, and I would assume... Oh, no! Actually, that's the only place that it's sewn in, which is really interesting. Another interesting thing as well, you do have this knot here, and this knot is actually movable, which is very bizarre because you can do weird things like this, I guess. And, you know, I guess you can get a better look at his chest. We'll get to that in a second, but it is interesting that that is movable. The DK part is also embroidered on there with a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow. Looking pretty good. Since we have this uncovered as well, we might as well look at his heart-shaped abs, which I never really thought of them like that, but the way it is on this plush, he's got those Dwayne Johnson pecs, and then it just kind of goes into a heart shape. This in and of itself is a very hard fabric, kind of just being this cone that's there. I'm assuming it's its own separate piece, and then they just have it stuffed really harshly. Probably have some sort of like a harsh foam in there or something. And the stomach itself also has that as well. So, let's move the tie back so that DK can be less ashamed, I guess. Yeah, it does look a little bit more natural when the tie's there, because when it's not there... Speaking of buff, we might as well look at the arms, and Donkey Kong definitely did not skip Arm Day because he's looking like Thor from Love and Thunder right there. These do definitely feel a little bit stiffer, but on the forearms, those aren't as stiff. They're a little bit softer, though they do have that feeling where it feels like most of it is foam, and then in the center there's some stuffing in there. We also have the fists, which are sewn closed. This does make sense since he is kind of known for walking on all fours, though he can walk on all twos, and he does like to pound his chest. He does like to give a thumbs up with a cheesy grin. And he does like to eat bananas. So, kind of a shame, I guess, that we don't have cheesy grin and banana in his hand, though I feel like this definitely makes the most sense to have his paws like this, since he's not holding anything. Just to have the plush stand, this definitely helps the most, so I appreciate that. Everything on the hand is also a really good size. You have the thumb, and you also have all of the fingers, which instead of just doing a simple stitch job where it's just a palm and then having the stitch marks like they usually do with the gloves for Mario, they actually ended up having all of the fingers be made into different felt and have it stitched, so you do have an actual 3D hand, which is a pretty nice detail. Last few things, we have the back, which has a nice curve, and unfortunately, no, there is not the modern day detail, if you will. I believe that started in like Mario Kart Wii. Why do I realize this? I don't know. Childhood is weird. Also, you see Donkey Kong from the back if you play as him a lot in Mario Kart. Just saying. And now I'm wondering if he had his butt in Double Dash. Anyway, though, for the legs themselves, it does seem like it's pretty much less than the arms, and it actually, on the bottom, has more beans. The bean rice type thing on the feet, which has a weird sound and a weird squish to them. Just like the hands, though, these are completely made to be an entire foot, having the stitching on the toes and the little thumb toe right there as well. So all in all, this is a really well-designed plush. Again, I'm not that big a fan of the lip part, though for a Donkey Kong plush, I think this is a pretty safe bet, and if you really like Donkey Kong, you'll probably really like this plush, especially if you have the Diddy Kong one. Are there other Donkey Kong plush out there? Yeah, the ones that are out there are pretty few and far between. Honestly, though, I don't think that Sanei or Little Buddy are going to go anywhere because the quality of their plush are fantastic, and they have been doing this for like 10 to 15 years, so I really don't see their plush making going anywhere for Nintendo. Anyway, though, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, share yourself with that with no brother, mother, sister, father, iguana. Let me know down below what you guys think of the plush. And if you guys would like to see them maybe do another wave where they do a different style of the plush, or maybe they do like an updated version of some of them, because I think that would be pretty interesting to see like what they would maybe do differently, and to see maybe if they would consider doing some updates. Because, I mean, it has been done with a lot of stuff with Jack Specific, so other companies as well do it with re-releases, so I don't see why it couldn't happen. Though, it would stop us from getting more unique plush, and I do really like getting the unique, wacky, and interesting plush, because you never know the next time you would see a Dr. Mario plush, because that doesn't happen. Anyway, though, guys, I'm done rambling. Thank you so much for watching, and it's time to go eat my horde of bananas with Donkey Kong. Oh, 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 oh. So threatening. The noise was probably awful, yet it was probably still more threatening than this plush. Fair enough, I guess. Oh boy. Well, that's gonna be it. Bye, guys.